Good day, everyone. Welcome to lecture number 24 of Theory of Computation. And in this particular lecture, we will be discussing about the closure properties of context-free language. We have already discussed about the closure properties. So what are closure properties? So if we are discussing about a closure property, so closure property is a property P. So if this property is applied on some element of some group, on some element E of group G, this P, operation P, is called a closure property if after applying this P on E, applying this operation on this element, we will get a new element E dash, and that element also belongs to the same group, this particular group. Then this property will be called a closure property. Okay. And in our this particular lecture, we have to discuss the closure properties of context-free language. What does that mean? We have, these are our context-free language. So let's say this is our group of context-free language. Okay. And on these context-free languages, there are various operations possible. Various operations possible. And when we take any element from this group, element means when we take any language on this group, and when we applied an operation on this language, on this element, we will get a new element. That means we will get a new language. If this language also belongs to G, to this group, then it will imply that P is a closure property. However, if after applying an operation on the elements of this group, the new element that we get, if that element does not always belong to this group, maybe it may belong to this group for some elements and it may not belong to this group for some other elements. So that means it is not true for all. Okay, then in that case, P is not a closure property. So this should hold for all elements of G. Okay, so that means this operation will be called a closure property if we take any element, and after applying this operation, we will get a new element, and that element also belongs to the group. Then only it will be called an closure property. However, if for at least one element, this does not hold true, then P won't be called a closure property. So in today's lecture, we have to discuss different operations, different operations on context-free languages, and those operations which are closure properties. Closure properties means that when we apply those properties on context-free language, we will again get a context-free language. So we will discuss what operations are closure properties and what operations are not closure properties. Okay, so we are going to discuss first we discuss different closure properties for context-free language. Okay, then we are going to discuss different properties or different operations that are not closure properties in case of context-free language. Okay. So let me first discuss closure properties for context-free language. So let's discuss closure properties of context-free language. So that means we have to discuss different operations. So let me write here, we will discuss different operations on context-free language that are closure properties. What does that mean? We will discuss those operations such that when we operate those operations on a context-free language, we will again get a context-free language. So the first operation that we are going to discuss in today's class is the union operation. Union operation. Okay. So we will see that union is a closure property. What does that mean? We will see that union is a closure property. Okay. Or in other words, we can write that context-free languages are closed under union. So what is the meaning of this? It means that if I have two context-free languages, L1 and L2, and if I operate these two languages, operate by the union operation, so I will get a new language. Let's suppose I got a language L. Then if these two are context-free languages, then it will imply L is also a context-free language. So that means union is a closure property. So what does that mean? When we apply this operation on context-free languages, we will again get a context-free language. Or in simple words, it is written as context-free languages are closed under union. Okay. So I have written here, but we will need a proof. Okay. Why this is true? So let me write a proof. Okay, it is a simple proof, very simple. So let's assume L1 and L2 are context-free languages. So if we are assuming L1 and L2 are context-free languages, we have to prove L1 union L2. So let's say L1 union L2 is also a context-free language. Okay, so this is what we have to prove. So let's start. So let's say L1 is a context-free language, and we know when we have a context-free language, that means there will exist a grammar. So if L1 and L2 are context-free languages, it will implies there exists context-free grammars for L1 and L2. So because if we have a context-free language, that means that language will have a context-free grammar. So let's say G1 is the grammar for L1 and G2 is a grammar for L2. And in G1, let's say start symbol is S1. And in G2, start symbol is S2. Fine. So when I am saying that for G1, start symbol is S1. So that means S1 will generate all strings, generate all strings of L1. And S2 will generate all strings for L2. Okay, so this is fine up to now. Now let's take this language, L language. So we have to prove this is context free. So let's say L is our language. We have to prove that it is a context free language. We will make a context free grammar for this language, L. Okay, so let me take a context free grammar G. And let's take the grammar has starting symbol S, such that S has following production rules, S1 and S gives S2. So these are the two production rules plus production rules of G1 plus production rules of G2. Okay. So what I am saying that G is a grammar whose starting symbol is S. And it has the following production rules. This is rule 1. This is rule 2. Plus production rules of G1 plus production rules of G2. So let's see what will this grammar generate, this particular grammar. So this grammar will generate from S, it will generate S1. And we know S1 generates all strings of L1. So this particular grammar will generate all strings of L1 plus there is another rule, S gives S2, and we know S2 generates all strings of L2. So it will also generate all strings of L2. So that means all strings of L1 plus all strings of L2. So what does that mean? It means that this grammar will generate L1 union L2. So that is, it will generate L. So we have seen that this L has a context-free grammar, this grammar, that is generating L1 union L2. So it implies L is a context-free language. Why it is a context-free language? Because we have shown that there is a grammar for this particular language. So we have proven that the union of two context-free languages is also a context-free language. Okay, so that means union is a closure property, or we can say context-free languages are closed under union. Now, let's take another operation. Let me rub this first and let's take another operation. So the second operation that we are going to discuss is concatenation. This is the second operation. So concatenation is a closure property in case of context-free languages. Or in other words, I can say that context-free languages are closed under concatenation. Under concatenation. Okay. What does that mean? It means that if L1 and L2 are context-free languages, then their concatenation, L1 concatenation with L2, that means a new language. L is also a context-free language. Okay, what is L1 concatenation L2? It means first will be strings of L1 followed by strings of L2. For example, L1 is, let's suppose it has these strings. Okay, L2 has, let's say, B, A. These are the strings of L2. Then L1 dot L2 will be, first will be strings of L1. So AA dot B, comma, AA dot A, then BB, then BA. These are the strings and L1 concatenation with L2. So what I am saying, that concatenation is a closure property, that context-free languages are closed under concatenation. What does that mean? If I am concatenating two context-free languages, then their concatenation, then the resulting language that we will generate is also a context-free language. Now let me give a proof for this particular statement. So let's write the proof. Let's assume, so let me divide this section here. So let's assume L1 and L2 are context-free languages. So we have to prove L is equal to concatenation of L1 dot L2 is also a context-free language. Let's prove it. So how will we prove it? We will use the same approach that we have used in case of union. Since L1 and L2 are context-free languages, that means G1 will be a context-free grammar, is a context-free grammar for L1, and G2 is a context-free grammar for L2. Now we have to find, if we are able to find a context-free grammar for L, so that means L is a context-free language. So since G1 is a context-free grammar, let's say its starting symbol is S1. G2 is a context-free grammar for L2. Let's say its starting symbol is S2. S1 means it will generate strings of L1, and S2 means strings of L2. Now I will make a new context-free grammar, G. And let's consider this grammar has starting symbol S. And the production rules are, what are the production rules? S1 gives, sorry, S, so let me rewrite it. S gives S1 dot S2 plus production rules of G1 plus production rules of G2. And let's see what is this G going to generate. So what strings will be generated by G, by this grammar. Okay. So you can see the production rule. First, starting production rule is, we know that all strings will be generated from S, because S is the starting symbol, and S is going to generate S1 concatenation with S2. And we know S1 generates strings of L1, and S2 generates strings of L2, and S will generate strings of L1 concatenation with strings of L2, And you can see strings of L1 dot strings of L2 will mean L1 dot L2. And we know L1 dot L2 is L. So that means this grammar, G, is a context-free grammar for which language? For this language, L1 dot L2. And what is this language? L. So that means L is a context-free language. Why it is a context-free language? Because there exists a context-free grammar for this language. And this implies context-free languages are closed under concatenation. Closed under concatenation. Okay. So this was our second operation. Now let's discuss the third operation that is also a closure property. Okay. So let me write that operation. The third operation is Kleene closure. Kleene closure is also a closure property. Or in other words, I can write that context-free languages are closed under Kleene closure, or we can say star operation. This is also called a star operation. Kleene closure. What does that mean? We have already discussed what is Kleene closure. Okay, so it means that if L is a language, is a context-free language, then Kleene closure of L, that is denoted by L star, is also a context-free language. Okay, so what is L star? L star is basically union of L0, union L1, union L2. What is the meaning of L2? L2 means L concatenation with L. Union L3 dash 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 union L. Okay. So that is L star. We have to prove that L star is a context-free language. So let me write the proof here. So let's assume L is a context-free language. Okay, so we have to prove L star is equal to L0 union L1 union L2 dash 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 union Ln is also a context-free language. Okay, so assume L is a context-free language. We have to prove L star is a context-free language. So let's see. So first, let's take L0. What is L0? L0 is pi. And we know every finite language is a context-free language. So L0 is a context-free language. Now let's take L1. L1 is L. Same. And L is by default. We have assumed L is a context-free language. Now let's take L2. L2 means L concatenation with L. So L is a context-free language, and second L is also a context-free language. And concatenation of two context-free languages is also a context-free language. So that means this is also context-free language. Okay. L square is a context-free language. L cube can be written as L dot L square. Now L is context-free language, and this is also context-free language. We have proven it here. Okay, so that means concatenation of two context-free languages is also a context-free language. So L cube is also a context-free language. Likewise, we will prove L4, L5, dash, 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 L raised power N. They all are context-free languages. Okay, so we have proven that all L0, L1, L2, dash, 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 Ln, these all are context-free languages. And we know that union of context-free language is also a context-free language. We have already proven it in the first operation. Okay, so that means we will do the union of these. What will be the union of these? L0 union L1 union L2 dash 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 union Ln. So this is also a context-free language, because union of context-free languages is also a context-free language. And we know this union is the L star. So L star is also a context-free language. So we have proven that L star is a context-free language. So this implies that context-free languages are closed under Kleene closure. Or we can say Kleene closure is a closure property in case of context-free languages. Now we have to discuss another operation. Okay. So let's discuss the fourth operation. The fourth operation that is a closure property is substitution. So substitution is a closure property. It's a closure property. Or in other words, we can say that context-free languages are closed under substitution. But before discussing this, we have to understand what is substitution. Okay. So what is substitution here is that, so let's say we have our alphabet set. Okay. So let's say it contains 0 and 1. Then we have a language, context-free language, that is defined on this alphabet set. Okay. This L is a context-free language. Now let's say for every symbol, of alphabet set, we have a language. What does that mean? It means that let's say for alphabet 0, we have a language. Language means set of strings. Okay. Likewise, for alphabet 1, we have a language. Language means set of strings. So we will say that for every alphabet in an alphabet set, we have some languages. These are our languages. And what is substitution says? So here, let's suppose we have a language L. Let's say this language has following strings. Okay. Then S of L. it will be a language. So how it will be a language? So it will be a language containing following strings. Let's say S of 0 is 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. S of 1 is 1, 1, 1, 0. Or let me write it 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1. Okay. Then S of, so how many strings are there? 1, 2. So S of 0, 1, 0 will be is equal to S of 0 concatenation with S of 1 concatenation with, sorry, S of 1 concatenation with S of 0. So what is S of 0? So S of 0 has these 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. Okay. So S of 0 is 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. S of 1 is 1, 1, 0, 1. And S of 0 is 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. So these three concatenations. So let's first find out what is concatenation of S of 0 concatenation with S of 1. What will be that? That will be 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1. Okay. Now we have to do concatenation of S of 0 dot S of 1. So concatenation of this with S of 0. So we will get, what will be the answer? The answer will be 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1. Likewise for others. Okay. So this will be S of 0, 1, 0. Likewise, we have to find S of 1, 0, 0. So we will get the strings here. So S of L will contain S of 0, 1, 0 and S of 1, 0, 0. So this will be our new language. Okay. So what is substitution saying? Substitution is saying that if S of A is a substitution language for an alphabet A in sigma, and L is a context-free language over sigma star, then it is saying if S of A is context-free language, so that means all these languages, so these languages, whatever these languages are, S of 0, S of 1, whatever these languages, if all these languages are context-free languages, then the substitution of this language, that is S of L. So I have shown you here what is S of L. Okay. S of L will be a substitution over this language, this particular language. Okay. So this will also be a context-free language. So you have to keep in mind. Okay. So what is the substitution? Is a closure property, or we can say context-free languages are closed under substitution. What does that mean? It means that if we have an S of A, which is a substitution language for an alphabet A in sigma, and L is a context-free language over sigma star, then if S of A is context-free language, then S of L will also be a context-free language. Okay, so you have to keep in mind. So this statement is saying that context-free languages are closed under substitution. So for every symbol of an actual language, we have an entire language. So for every symbol Here we have an entire language, and then we can create a substitution language for a context-free language. Okay, so let's prove this particular statement. So the proof is very simple. So how will we prove it? We will assume L is a context-free language. So L1 is a context-free language. So G1 will be a context-free grammar for that language, because every context-free language has a context-free language. And now we have S of A. S of A is a context-free language. So that means for every S of A, there exists a grammar. Exists as a grammar. And we have to prove that S of L is also a context-free language, or we can say for S of L, or in other words, we can say for S of L, there is a context-free grammar. So let's see if there is a context-free grammar for S of L. Okay, so this grammar for L1, let's say its starting symbol is S. Fine. Now what we are going to do, so let's say S of A, its starting symbol is SA. Let's say there are two alphabets, one is A, another is A dash. So there will be one language for A, that is S of A. There will be another language for A dash, that is S of A dash. So let's say, so since both are context-free languages, so the grammar for SA have starting symbol as SA, and grammar for S of A dash has starting symbol as S of A dash. So it will generate all strings of S of A, and it will generate all strings of S of A dash. So G1 is a grammar for L1. So if we have the productions, for example, S gives alpha, let's say alpha is something A and something else. Okay, and likewise we have productions S gives alpha, A dash, and something else. So what we are going to do, we will create new production rules. So S gives alpha, instead of A, we will write S of A. And S gives alpha, A dash, instead of A dash, we will write S of A dash. So you will see wherever we have A, we will replace it with S of A, and wherever we have A dash, we will replace it with S of A dash. So this particular grammar, this new grammar will be a grammar for this particular language. Why for this particular language? Because this language contains strings. So which strings? Strings that are formed from the substitution of each alphabet. Okay, so let's suppose in L we were having a string like A dash A. Okay, now we are saying that for this string in S of L, there will be S of A concatenation with S of A dash concatenation with S of A. Now you can see S of A. In this grammar, we are replacing, wherever we have A, we are replacing with S of A. Wherever we have A dash, we are replacing it with S of A dash. So this particular string would have been generated if there would have been A dash, and A 3 times. Okay. And now we are replacing them with S of A dash, and S of A. Now S of A generates the strings of S of A. S of A dash generates the strings of S of A dash, and S of A generates the strings of S of A. So that means this grammar will generate this particular set of strings. So this is a grammar for S of L. So we have been able, so what I am saying here, so for S of L, we are able to create a context-free grammar. So this implies S of L is a context-free language, and this implies that context-free languages are closed under substitution. So hence, bro. So this was the fourth closure property for context-free languages. Now let's understand another property. So that is the fifth property, and that is related to string homomorphism. Homomorphism. So we have already discussed in regular language what is string homomorphism. I will briefly discuss it here. So, but before that, what I am writing here, that string homomorphism is a closure property for context-free languages. Or we can say that context-free languages are closed under string homomorphism. So what does that mean? So let's say our alphabet set is alpha is equal to 0, 1. Okay. And L is a context-free language over sigma star. So it is a context-free language. Okay. Now let's suppose we have another set gamma. Fine. We have another set which is gamma, and gamma is an alphabet set. It contains, let's suppose, 3 alphabets, A, B, C. Fine. Now let's suppose we have a function that maps alphabet to a string of alphabet, to a string of gamma star. So that means, let's suppose for every symbol in alphabet set, so let's suppose for 0, we have a string in gamma star, that is, let's suppose AA. For 1, we have another string, let's suppose BC. Okay, so we can say there is a function H. So H of 0 gives AA, H of 1 gives BC. So that means for every alphabet symbol in sigma, there is a string in gamma star. Okay. So now L is a context-free language. Fine. Then we are saying H of L is also a context-free language. What does that mean? What will be H of L? Let's suppose L is this 0, 0, 1, 1. Okay. Then H of L will be is equal to, so it will be H of 0, 0, comma H of 1, 1. So now H of 0, 0. What is H of 0, 0? So H of 0, 0 means H of 0 concatenation with H of 0. What is H of 0? So I have written here H of 0 is AA. So it is AA, AA. And what will be H of 1? You can see the H of 1 is BC, BC. So this H of L will be this particular language. So you can see that L L was a language over this alphabet set, but H of L is a language over this particular alphabet set. Okay. So this is called a string homomorphism, mapping one alphabet to a string of another alphabet set. And what is string a homomorphism says? It is saying that if H is a function that maps the symbols of sigma to strings of gamma star, which is an alphabet, which is another alphabet set, then if L is a context-free language over sigma star, then H of L is a context-free language over gamma star. Okay, so this is the string homomorphism. The proof of this particular theorem, is similar to substitution. Okay, it is similar to substitution with some small changes. So it is your job to do this, the proof of this particular closure property. So it is your homework. Prove it. Okay. The last closure property that we are going to discuss is the reversal. Okay. Reversal is also a closure property, or we can say context-free languages are closed under reversal. What does that mean? It means that if L is a context-free language, then reverse of L, that is L of R, is also a context-free language. So what does that mean? Let's suppose L is equal to this 1 1 1 1 0 1 1 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 1. Okay, so let's suppose this is L. Then its reverse will be the reverse of its strings. So what are its strings? So reverse of this. What is the reverse of this? 1 0 1 1. What is the reverse of this? 1 0 1. What is the reverse of this? 1 1 0. So this is the reverse of L. So it is saying if L is a context-free language, then L of R is also a context-free language. Okay, and the proof of this particular theorem will also be a homework to you. So you have to prove this. Okay, so both are homeworks, but here I am going to give you a hint. The hint is, so you have to consider L as a language, context-free language. So there will exist a grammar, and let's say it is starting symbol is S. And let's say it has production rules like this, alpha, beta, these are its production rules. Okay, then you can easily create a grammar for this L of R. So the grammar will be, let's suppose S is the starting symbol. So from these production rules, the production rules of L, you will create the production rules of L of R. So it will be the reverse of these. So what is the reverse of this? It is beta, alpha. Okay, so the reverse of these. Fine. So it is your job to do it, to prove this particular closure property as well. So we have discussed 6 properties here. So we have discussed, the first is union. The second is concatenation. The third is Kleene closure or star operation. The fourth is substitution. The fifth is string homomorphism. The string homomorphism has another operation, homomorphism, that is the inverse homomorphism. Okay, that is also a closure property, but we are not going to discuss that here. And the sixth is reversal. So, but for clarity, you should remember that inverse of string homomorphism is also a closure property. So these are the six properties that we discussed, six operations that are closure properties in case of context-free language. Okay. So in case of regular language, you can see that almost every operation was a closure property in regular language. But in case of context-free language, these are some of the operations that are closure properties. But there are some operations that are not closure properties. For example, intersection. Intersection is not a closure property in case of context-free language, but in case of regular language, it was a closure property. Okay, so let's now discuss some of the properties that are not closure properties. Okay, so let's discuss operations that are not closure properties. Closure properties in case of regular language, in case of context-free language. Okay, and the first property that we are going to discuss, which is not a closure property, is an intersection. Okay, so intersection in case of context-free language is not a closure property. Or we can write that context-free languages are not closed under intersection. So what does that mean? It means that if L is a context-free language, then if L1 and L2 are context-free language, then L1 intersection L2, let's say L, is not necessarily a context-free language. Oh, sorry, context-free language. Okay, so how will we prove it? So the proof will be the proof of this particular theorem will be the proof by counter example. So proof by an example. So we will give an example. So we will give an example where we will take two languages, L1 and L2. So both these languages will be context-free languages. And then we will do the intersection of these two languages. We will get a new language, and that language will not be a context-free language. That will prove this particular theorem. So let me take a language. L1 is equal to A raised power M, B raised power N, C raised power N. Okay. And L2 is equal to A raised power N, B raised power N, C raised power N. So in this language contains strings that have equal number of B's and C's, and no relation with the A. Okay, and this one contains strings that have equal number of A's and B's. So I have given you a homework in our previous course that you have to prove that these two are context-free languages. Both these languages are context-free languages. You can easily make a grammar for L1 and L2. I have already given you an homework in the previous lecture where you have to prove that these two are context-free languages. You can prove by creating a grammar for L1 and grammar for L2. That is very simple. Now, what is the intersection of L1 and L2? So L1 intersection L2 will contain strings that have equal number of A's, B's, and C's. So that will be the intersection of L1 and L2. So L1 intersection L2 is equal to L is equal to A raised power n, B raised power n, C raised power n. And we have proved it by pumping lemma that this language is not a context-free language. So that means L1 and L2 were context-free languages, but their intersection is not always a context-free language. And we have proven it here with the help of an example. Okay, so you have to remember that if I am taking two context-free languages, then I am doing the intersection of those languages. Then the resultant language may be or may not be a context-free language. It is not always true that the resultant language will be a context-free language. It may be a context-free language or it may not be a context-free language. So from this, we have concluded that context-free languages are not closed under intersection. Okay. So the second thing that you have to, or we can say the second operation that is not a closure property is the complementation. Okay, so complementation is also not a closure property, or I can write that context-free languages are not closed under complementation. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that if L is a context-free language, then L complement, so L complement will be sigma star minus L, is not necessarily a context-free language. Okay, so let's give it a proof. So you can prove it using an example by giving an example, or we can use the properties that we have already discussed. So let's assume L is a context-free language and L complement is also a context-free language, or let me write it in similar terms. So let's assume context-free languages are closed under, this is closed under complementation. So let's assume that this is not true. So let's say they are closed under complementation. So if okay. So we are saying that context-free languages are closed under complementation. So complementation. Fine. So now let's consider two context-free languages, L1 and L2. So these are two context-free languages, L1 and L2. Now what will be L1 intersection L2? Will it be a context-free language or not? So we don't know, because context-free languages are not closed under complementation. So it may be a context-free language or it may not be a context-free language. Okay, so let's write it L1 intersection L2. We can write it is equal to L1 complement union L2 complement whole complement, because this and this will be same. Okay, L1 complement union L2 complement whole complement. This is equal to, now let's see L1 complement. What is L1 complement? So L1 is a context-free language, and we are saying context-free languages are closed under complementation. So L1 complement will also be a context-free language. So it is a context-free language, L1 complement. Okay, context-free language. Then we have a union. What is this L2 complement? L2 is a context-free language, and we have assumed that they are closed under complementation. So L2 complement is also a context-free language. So it is also context-free language, and their complementation is equal to. Now we have context-free language union context-free language. Union of two context-free languages is also a context-free language. Why? Because context-free languages are closed under union. So we can write union of context-free language with a context-free language is a context-free language, and we have a complementation. Now here we have a context-free language and it is complementation, and we have assumed that context-free languages are closed under complementation. So the result will be a context-free language. So we have proved here that L1 intersection of two context-free languages is always a context-free language. But in our first theorem here, we have proved that context-free languages are not closed under complementation, are not closed under intersection. So this is not always true. This is not always true. So we have reached to a contradiction. So there is a contradiction. So when there is a contradiction, that means our assumption was wrong. What was our assumption? Our assumption was that context-free languages are closed under complementation. So this implies our assumption is wrong. So our assumption is wrong. That implies context-free languages are not closed under complementation. Okay. So we have proved that context-free languages are not closed under complementation. So your homework here is that you have to prove it using an example. So like we have proved for intersection, you have to prove the same using an example. This one, that context-free languages are not closed under complementation. So you have to find an L such that L is a context-free language, and then you have to find the complement of L that is not context-free language. So that is your assignment for this particular topic. Now, the last property that we are going to discuss is the set difference. Set difference. So it is saying that context-free languages are not closed under set difference. So what does that mean? It means that if L1 and L2 are context-free languages, then L1 minus L2 is not necessarily a context-free language. And the proof of this particular theorem is also a homework to you. Okay, so I will give you a hint here that you can prove this using the same approach, the approach that we have used here. Okay, or you can do it, for example. So let me give you a hint. So you will assume, so first assume that the context-free languages are closed under set difference. Then you will see that L1 minus L2, that will be equal to L1 intersection L2 complement. You can use this particular information to prove this particular theorem. So that was all for the closure properties. So with this, we have completed the discussion for the closure properties. So we said that closure properties, we said that context-free languages are closed under union, concatenation, Kleene closure, substitution, string homomorphism, and its inverse, and reverse. Okay, so this is one thing that we have discussed. Second thing we have discussed, that context-free languages are not closed under intersection, complementation, and set difference. So these 6 are closure properties and these are not closure properties. So with this, I will stop this particular lecture, and in our next lecture, we will start discussing about the push down automata. So we will discuss what are push down automatas and how to design those. So we will discuss this in our lecture number 20. So let's meet in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye.